Welcome to the third video of the ISAC short class series, How to Become an Art Historian. In the third video, we are still questioning what exactly it is that we do when we do art history. In the first video, we have seen that art history as an academic discipline is based on a notion, a concept, art, which did not exist as we understand it today for ancient societies. In the second video, following the idea that the notion of art is relatively modern, we have seen that when practicing ancient art history, there is a necessity of dismantling the inherited aesthetic narratives which designate what is art and what is not. I do believe that the necessary dismantling is particularly important when we do ancient art history that is not classical art history. I would like here to acknowledge that this belief is based on my own experience as a French art historian trained in a Western university. The aesthetic experience we have of the works of art depends also on our place of living, of training. And indeed, a student trained in today's Iran might certainly have a different aesthetic experience to the images of ancient Iran than me. But I do feel that for ancient art history as an academic discipline, classical aesthetic has still an important weight. The narrative on classical aesthetics has been long developed, since Pliny the Elder at least, and then takes root during the Renaissance with the rediscovery of classical antiquity. The classical aesthetics narrative is complex, but we could resume it by saying that it is based on the idea that perfect art shall imitate nature to perfection through a formal shape that renders grace, movement, emotion, and life. In my work as an art historian of ancient Iran, I had to, and sometimes I still need to, detach myself from that narrative in order to better see the works I am working on. And that is going to be today's video subject. What do we see when we see ancient art history, when we do ancient art history? So, what exactly is it that we do when we do ancient art history? We tend to reconstruct processes of creation and to delineate an articulate aesthetic context for the sake of understanding what was the meaning, the use, the function of the works, the images we are working on. Doing so, in my own experience, a question is always raised. What did people were seeing in late antique Iran? How did they perceive the corpus of images I now call art? Can I unravel this ancient perception? Can I see through their eyes? To answer these questions, I do think that when practicing ancient art history, I can benefit from dialogue with other disciplines. Of course, disciplines from humanities and social sciences, which participate in defining a given aesthetics context, such as archaeology, history, linguistics, but also disciplines from biology, which seek to understand how a body and a mind perceived images. But before reflecting on the benefits of that disciplinary dialogue, there is a first question that needs to be addressed. What exactly is it that we see when we do ancient art history? It is an important question for ancient art history because what I see is very rarely what they saw. Do we see what they saw? Oftentimes, not in the same context. For example, Arthurian palace reliefs are not in their palaces anymore because their palaces were destroyed by later conquerors as Elamite than the Achaemenid, because the reliefs were moved into museums after the palaces were excavated, mostly in Western museums, including the ISAC museum, because those palaces were unfortunately destroyed by modern terrorism. 8th of November 2015, Daesh plundered and destroyed using bulldozers the Neo-Assyrian city of Dush Sharukin, known as Khorsabad. The 12th and 13th of April 2016, Daesh destroyed 3 Neo-Assyrian doors from the city of Nineveh. On the 17th of November 2016, Daesh broadcast a video showing their methodological destruction of the city of Nimrud. Some images appear in their original context. That is the case, for example, for the Sasanian rock relief that can't be detached of their cliff. But still, the context could have slightly changed. The landscape is not exactly the same due to erosion, to changes in construction, etc. When it comes to understand the meaning, the importance, the use, the function of the ancient images, context is crucial. Where were the images? Were they visible? Who saw them? So many questions that are not always easy to answer, even with an archaeological context, and all the more without it. Indeed, even with an archaeological context, the function of a building can't always be clearly defined. And when a work is found in context, we are lacking archives to inform the process of creation leading to the existence of an image. As an art historian of ancient periods, more often than not, I have to work on fragmentary images. As for that Sasanian silver dish with a missing part, or that Sasanian rock relief where the water from an old canal had left a deep cut. An important corpus of images for the Sasanian period, as for the whole of the ancient North Africa and West Asia, is the images from seals and ceilings. The first one can be in pretty good shape, but the second one are usually made of clay, and the imprint left by the seal can have been erased with time, or imprinted in such a way that it is not possible to see it now. One last aspect when working on ancient objects is that their shape, being fragmentary, could have been also distorted by heavy acts of conservation. These acts mostly dated back from 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, when we were seeking for compilations, sometimes at the cost of historical accuracy. Here is an example from the ISAC Museum's collection. This bowl was excavated at the site of Ishtar by Schmidt, who also made a restoration that was much more a completion of the object, since the pieces needed to hold the bowl together were made as part of the original pattern. On the first state of the bowl, the viewer could not be able to make the distinction between what was original and what was made by a 20th century archaeologist. A few years ago, the conservation team at the ISAC Museum de-restored it. The pieces added to hold the bowl together appear clearly in cream color and can't be confounded with the original pieces. One of the most interesting and frequent challenges for ancient art history is, can we see in color? A certain number of objects have reached us with their almost original colors. That is the case for the Greek vases. For late antique Iran, the silverwares certainly presented colors that are close to what we see now, although colors and brightness can have faded out. But an important number of objects have reached us without their original colors. It is a case for the ancient Greek statues as well as their Roman copies in marble. In late antique Iran, we have detected traces of blue and red pigments on stucco decoration. Those stuccos seem to have been certainly entirely painted in bright blue and red, maybe other colors, given to the image or to a complete set of stucco's decoration, a very different aspects from what we see now. As well, traces of pigment have been detected on that very huge rock relief. That is an important point to have in mind because the aesthetics experience should have been very different from what we see now. We see the rock relief in beige on beige. They saw them in bright colors glaring on beige. In terms of ancient colors, reconstructions are always helpful to push us to see outside our beige box. But it is also very difficult to make them historically accurate. So, what exactly we do when we do ancient art history is looking at images that are fragmentary, distorted, and not in their original colors. Plus, I see them with my 21st century mind. What a challenge. Practicing art history is interrogating the process of perception. We have seen that ancient objects have not always reached us in the context and in the shape they were perceived by those who viewed them in ancient times. This is the first challenge for ancient art history. In my opinion, the second challenge questions the way human brain perceives objects. Do we all share the same perception? Can I, as an art historian of the 21st century, perceive an object, an image, as a person living in late antique Iran did? I would like to make a disclaimer here. I am not a neuroscientist, nor a specialist of cognitive sciences. And I'm going to share what I have understood with my very little knowledge of it. I apologize for any inaccuracies. And I invite you to go check the list of references if you want to delve into that aspect. My interest is also fully in line with the neural and cognitive turn in art history, begun in the early 2000s, which introduces the study of the psyche into the relationship with the work, the image. So, how do we see? Light energy, structured by an object, is reflected in the eye. An image of the object is formed in the retina by receptor cells that capture light energy and transform it into electrical signals. These electrical signals travel through the optic nerve to the visual cortex, the part of the brain where meaning is derived from those electrical signals. The eye's reaction to an image is physically the same for everyone, except in special cases where the eye and brain function differently. For example, the human brain is very good at perceiving exaggerated contrasts, light and dark. Another example of universally shared perception is that the cells of the visual cortex, because of the way they are organized, respond best to lines and edges. An image made entirely of lines will be particularly well received by your visual cortex. What are the implications for ancient art history? It means that when I am working on an image, when I am analyzing an ancient image, my own sensitivity to lines and contrasts is shared by other humans, even living before me. There is then a relevant element of inquiry when doing a formal analysis. For example, in that relief, we can see that lines, both vertical and horizontal, have been used to structure the image in a pyramidal form. Let's go back for a second to the process of vision. Remind that the electrical signal travel along the optic nerve to the visual cortex, the part of the brain where meaning is derived from them. That is the second part of the process of vision, which is making sense, transforming the electrical signals in an understandable image. And that second part of the process is deeply contextualized. The sense you are making out of electrical signals depend on a multitude of factors. Where you grew up, what training you received, to what images you are used to be confronted to. So going back to our relief, I see all those lines, and they were certainly made purposefully. When I am practicing ancient art history, the question is indeed, can I reconstruct a meaning the viewers of late antique Iran would have made of all those lines? Yes, at least partly by an interdisciplinary dialogue within the humanities to recreate the cognitive and aesthetics context in a given period. Here, all those lines serve the purpose of making the Sasanian king the backbone of a pyramid, crushing the Roman power. it is certainly what was conveyed to the viewers of late antique Iran. I would like to quote here the pioneer work by Irene Winter, a very important art historian for ancient West Asia, who acknowledged very early the necessity to see through somebody else's mind, and had made a very inspiring proposition for seeking an articulate aesthetics context in ancient societies. So, what is it exactly that we do when we do ancient art history or art history? Well, I do believe that practicing art history is a lot about otherness. And what exactly is that we do? Is seeing 1,000 images through somebody else's mind to grape their perception of beauty, of art, of the world.